This is the Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well podcast. I'm Lisa Salisbury, and this is episode 104, Be It Till You See It, with Lesley Logan. Lesley is a second-generation certified Pilates teacher, breathwork, habits, and mindset coach, and the founder of onlinepilatesclasses.com. We start by chatting about Pilates, of course, but quickly move into a fun discussion about the difference between fake it till you make it and be it till you see it. Spoiler alert, one gives you imposter syndrome and one doesn't. We also take a long look at what self-care is and how to incorporate it during your busy day. Movement is, of course, important to both of us, and we hope we inspire you to prioritize it as well. Welcome to Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well, the podcast for women who want to lose weight but are tired of counting and calculating all the food. I'm your host, Lisa Salisbury. I'm a certified health and weight loss coach and life coach, and most importantly, a recovered chronic dieter. I'll teach you to figure out why you are eating when you aren't hungry instead of worrying so much about what you are eating. Welcome back to the Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well podcast. I'm delighted to have Lesley Logan, who is the host of the Be It Till You See It podcast, also the founder of the online pilatesclasses.com. So she reached out to me and I thought we'd have a great conversation. So welcome, Lesley. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came into the wellness space, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Lisa. It's been really fun. Honestly, my father was big into sports, and so I grew up just as a very active person. I got into college to do kinesiology. I thought I would for sure be an athletic trainer for football teams. Like that was my dream. And I happened to have a really hard time with my right arm. I was having pains in my shoulder, which turned out to be from carpal tunnel as a 20-year-old. And so I switched my majors, but I never left the exercise fitness world. And I happened to be invited to a Pilates class, which I laughed at the girl who invited me. I said, that can't do what you think it's going to do. It's an infomercial workout. It's BS. It's BS. But I wanted a friend. So I went to the class and I found and felt parts of my body I never felt before, which is a little weird for an athlete and someone who is very active. Like, don't I know all the muscles? I mean, I studied them. But I felt parts of myself I never felt before. And I changed my work schedule so I could go every single day. And that led me down a whole path because I realized the more I moved my body, the more I connected to myself, the more I realized kind of what I wanted in life and like how I wanted to live my life, and got more present and discovered I wanted to move to Los Angeles. And then from there, like it was just like a domino effect of like the more present you get in like what is making you happy and unhappy, the more honest you can get with yourself, and the more I could prioritize the decisions I was making in my life. It wasn't just like kind of happening to me. I was kind of in control of it. And someone suggested I become a Pilates instructor. It was 2008 when I became a Pilates instructor, which is not really the time that most people are making job changes, but I did. And people thought I was crazy. They thought no one is going to pay for private sessions with you during this time. I got so busy teaching Pilates, I had to quit my real job. And and that was in air quotes for those listening. And I've been doing it ever since. It's led me all over the world. And that led me to studying mindset, studying habits, and really trying to understand like what makes it easy for some people to take time for themselves and their movement practice and making choices that they know will make them feel better, and why it's harder for others. And that's really helped me understand people who are different than myself, who can like, I say I'm going to do something, I'll just do it. Having an understanding of what it takes and the science behind it has been really cool. That's how I got here.
Perfect. Thank you. So we are definitely going to be talking about mindset and some self-care. But before we get into that, just like one quick question on Pilates, because this is actually something I've always wondered myself. How would you define the difference? Because a lot of what you said, I feel like is similar to yoga practice. And because Pilates refers to their workouts as like a practice. Whereas when I went to the gym this morning, like to lift weights, I call it lifting, or I don't call it like my lifting practice, right? So that term seems to be unique to both Pilates and yoga. How are they similar and different? And do you need both, or?
Such a good question. Also, like doctors are practicing. And there's actually there's like a couple. So I only bring that up because like I think if people saw their workout as a practice, it would probably change how we think about working out too.
Mm.
So I don't know.
Hmm.
I just see what it's like to use that word. Pilates and yoga are actually very different. Now there are similarities, but those similarities I would also say you could probably find an equal amount when it comes to going to the gym and doing Pilates. So
Mm.
first and foremost, I think the reason why Pilates and yoga get put together is they're often found in the same studios. So even at
Yeah,
gyms, they'll
yeah.
put Pilates in the same studio. Reason is they have the mats there, but they're the wrong mats. You should not be doing Pilates on a yoga mat ever. It's
Oh
really not going to
no.
be comfortable. It's not going to be fun. You need a thicker mat for Pilates. But all that being said, so there is the mat practice of Pilates, and you'll also hear I do reformer Pilates. I do this. It's all
Mhm.
Pilates in my book. It's just that there's a different piece of apparatus you could do it on. So a different piece of equipment, right? You could do kettlebells or you could do barbells or you could do free weights, right? So Pilates and yoga both can be done on a mat, but not always. Pilates can also be done on a bunch of different pieces of equipment based on what your body needs. So unfortunately, a lot of people go to classes that are designed for the average person and kind of it's a great workout, it's a great metabolic workout, but it might not be tailored to you. However, those pieces of equipment are in existence because Joseph Pilates saw that people were struggling with his mat work and needed the reformer. They needed the tower Cadillac. They needed the Wonder chair to get the connections. So each piece of equipment in Pilates actually challenges what we're doing, but it's not like a practice makes a perfect. Practice makes progress, right? And so the other similarities I say that there's Pilates focuses on breath ish. You would breathe differently in doing Pilates than you would in yoga. Yoga does a big
Mm.
diaphragmatic breath. They fill the belly, fill the lungs, exhale out the mouth. It's very important. In Pilates, we're actually trying to do in and out through the nose, more of a lateral breathing so you can keep your abdominals engaged. And then you're ideally not repeating an exercise. So you're going from one to the next, where in yoga, you might repeat a pose depending on what type of
And do
yoga
like a
practice.
flow. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many yoga
Okay.
practices out there, so I don't want any yogis like she's wrong. I do Ashtanga. Yes, there's an order.
Yeah.
So like, but and so there's a breath, and then there's that mind body connection. Those are similar, but I would actually say that the intentions and behind each are very different in what you're trying to do. And while yoga can be strength based, Pilates is strength based and does have flexibility components to it. But the idea is to connect and contract all of your muscles. You're working them all together evenly. You're not overusing or overstretching anything at at one time. But then if you look at like weight training, Pilates is very similar, right? You're trying to strengthen your muscles. There's
Hmm.
asymmetrical exercises. So it's all movement, and there's only so many ways the body moves, just the intentionality behind it. But what I love about Pilates is that its focus is to balance your imbalances, to work out the whole body at one time. Whereas at the gym, you could do a leg day, an arm day, a back day, right? In Pilates,
Hmm.
it's the whole body. Every exercise is for the whole body. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense for people trying to figure the two out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really helpful. Thank you. All right. So the name of your podcast is Be It Till You See It, which is so fascinating because as we were talking before, you said it's quite different than Fake It Till You Make It, which, like you, not a fan of that saying. So tell us a little bit about that saying, what that means to you, and how that leads into, really prioritizing yourself.
Yeah. Okay. I'm so excited to talk about this because I remember being younger and seeing like Martha Stewart had like a reality TV show. It's kind of like The Apprentice. And someone was like, well, we fake it till you make it. And Martha was like, you're fired. We never fake anything. And I laughed a little bit because I'm like, Martha, really? Like some of the stuff that you're doing is kind of faking it. Right. But I did appreciate her approach to be like, we don't like, it made me like stop in my tracks because I'm like, you hear it all the time. Fake it till you make it.
Hmm.
The reality is most women struggle with faking anything. They feel like an imposter. They feel like a fraud. And I don't think anyone's an imposter. I think oftentimes we're just beginners at things and we're new to some things. And so instead of faking it and pretending like you're not that already, what if you just acted as if you were? So it's a little bit different. It's a different play on the same words, but how you think about it is this. If you were someone who prioritized yourself, if you were like looking at someone, you're like some woman that you're like, oh my gosh, she has it all together. Okay, let's just pretend for a moment, queen for a day, we snap our fingers, like you're it. How does your life look? How are you filtering things? How are you making decisions? How are you spending your time? And then instead of waiting until that happens or thinking that's never going to happen for you, what if you actually acted that like that person today? If you were someone who prioritized yourself first, what are some decisions you would make about your morning? Would you hit snooze instead of would you actually like rush out the door without like actually grabbing the gym bag, or would you have packed it the night before? Like these are just different decisions we would make. And if you can start to think, if I'm already that person, what would I actually do right now in this moment? We can make different decisions for ourselves. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to end up with the hours of time that someone you visioned would have, but what if you actually made those decisions today? So another example, when I started my business, I had no idea what it was like to run a business. I had no idea. And I kept finding myself going, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Well, guess what? If you keep saying I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't have time, or I don't have these things, you won't. It's this
Mm-hmm.
really cool thing that
Mm-hmm.
happens. The universe proves to you correct. You don't. But instead, I said, well, what if I did know? If I was someone who knew how to run this business, what decision would I make in this moment? Would I be the person doing the thing? Oh, I probably would hire or ask someone who's an expert in that to do that thing, right? So it's that be it till you see it, just gives you a moment to take a pause. And instead of thinking that your life can't be what you want it to be, it could. And what decision would you make if it was? And it makes us show up in a different way. If you're someone who's like, I want to eat well, if you're like, I don't have the money to eat well, I don't have the time to cook, I don't have these things. Well, what if you were someone who already was eating well? What decisions would you make at the grocery store? Or what decisions would you make when you're choosing what to order for dinner? Like these, we can change our mindset by being it till we see it, acting as if we already are that person. And those little changes, they add up. I think we get it's the opposite of perfectionism, being until you see it because you're doing the best you can, acting as if, and not waiting until it's perfectly timed and ready.
I love the antidote to I don't know is what if you did? Because inevitably, when I have a new client come to me and I say, what's going on for you as far as why do you think you can't lose weight? And they almost always go, I don't know, right? Because that's why they're coming to me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, like based on your history or based on just random things you may have seen on Google, like, what do you think might be the problem? If you did know, what do you think might it be? Well, I probably eat off my kids' plates too often. Well, I probably snack too much during the day and then I'm not hungry for meal times. Like it's
Yeah.
always like, well, like you have so much wisdom inside you
Yeah.
and that is such a great question. Like, what if you did know
Yeah.
is actually a really valid one. So I love that because that's something I use too that and I
Yeah.
haven't thought of it as like being it and until you see it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I think it can be. I love that you ask people that. I had this one coach who's like, what if you had to know? And that always like I'm like as a firstborn child who like takes on too many other people's responsibilities. I'm like, that makes me freeze a little bit. But I do
Yeah.
like to go, what if I did? Like, what if I did know? It's a little bit like less pressure, lets you think,
Yeah.
you're right. We all have more wisdom. We all often know what the answer is. Like my grandmother was serial dieter. Like she knew all the things that it comes to health and weight loss. She knew them better than the doctors did. But I think really what it is like watching her struggle with that was partly because people acted around her like she didn't know how to lose weight or she didn't know how to be healthy. And she did.
Mhm.
And if she, maybe had people like you or people around who were just like, hey, like, what do you think it is? What do you think you could do? Then it becomes her decision on what she's doing in her life and not someone telling her what's going to work. Right. And then we
Yeah.
get to have this inner wisdom and make those choices for us.
Definitely. When you figure out the problem for yourself, you're way more likely to do it than if someone just says, do this, follow this meal plan, eat these things, do
Mhm.
this workout. When you're like, I think this is going to help me.
Yeah.
So, which really is all about, like I said, prioritizing yourself and getting into some of this self-care stuff. Because here's the thing, even if we're like, I think I probably snack too much, or I think I don't set my alarm early enough to go to the gym. I even had someone say, I just don't like my workout clothes. It's embarrassing to go to the gym, you know?
Mhm.
But why are we not buying the new workout clothes? Why are we
Mhm.
not saying no to the extra snacks? Why is it that we don't actually do these things? If we do discover that inner wisdom, like, why do
Mhm.
you think we don't take the steps?
Oh my gosh. I mean, if we knew the exact answer to that, we'd all be billionaires. But
Well, that's true.
I think to be honest, like it is actually very difficult to own the decisions and the control that we have in our day. It is to the person who at the close, it is embarrassing to admit that we know what we're doing is not helpful for ourselves. And we all do it. Like, I'm not even sitting here on a pedestal, you guys. Like, I know last night, I can tell you right now, I played my video game for an extra 20 minutes longer. I did it. I knew I was going to wake up feeling like crap. So we all do these things as a rebellious thing or as a sign that we can do whatever we want. But the truth is that if we're really loving of ourselves, if we actually love ourselves, then prioritizing ourselves first would actually be like a requirement number one. And we would actually make sure that the relationships in our lives also observe that priority for ourselves, but also for themselves. It frustrates the heck out of me when my husband, like, I'm so tired. And I'm like, yeah, you went to bed at 3. I'd be tired too. I'm not crying a violin for you because it's like freaking hot if when you like, it's sexy, it's amazing. I love you more when I know that you're taking care of yourself because I want to live a whole life with you. Like, I want you here. I want to live to 100 and I want you chasing with me. Like, I want that. Right. And what I see is a lot of people will use their partner or their children or their families as an excuse of why they can't prioritize themselves first. But what they're not doing is actually saying it is important to me that these things happen in my life so I can actually be the loving wife, mother, sister, friend, boss, coworker. And there's so much wellness shaming that happens out there.
Tell me
Like,
more about what do you mean?
oh, it must be nice that you can do this. It must be nice that you could have new workout
Oh,
clothes.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
I have clients who don't want to tell their friends that they do Pilates because they don't want their friends to know that they spend that kind of money. Oh, what would
Right.
people think at church or at work if they hear that I spent $100 million for a private session?
Hmm.
It's like, who cares? It's your budget. You can
Yeah.
decide how you spend your money, right? But there is this wellness shaming of people going, oh, must be nice if you go walk at your lunch instead of like having to work extra. And I think especially for people in the States, there is this weird badge of honor when you're really busy.
Totally.
And
It's the busy crown. Yeah.
yes,
You're
yes.
like,
Oh,
I'm so busy. I'm always like, let me crown you as the busy queen. Yes. You're
yes,
welcome to be the busy queen.
yes.
I do not want to be that.
I don't either. Like, oh, I only got 4 hours of sleep last night, and I find it really fascinating. So, I met this woman who actually did a whole talk at like a corporate office about wellness shaming, and I said, well,
Mhm.
how do you respond to that? And she goes, it is really nice. You should try it. Why don't you think
Right.
you're worthy of it? She's like, challenge people. We have to be, and I love this. I know that as I'm talking to probably a lot of women, and it's like, I'm not a confrontational person, but you can actually just practice responding. It is. Thank you for noticing. That's
Mhm.
not confrontational because what it is doing is making them go, oh, like there's nothing there. We are raised, oh, it's a nice shirt. Oh, it's on sale. How many people listening say
Right.
that? It's this exact
Yeah.
same thing. And ladies, the more we can as a group of people start to reflect that mirror back, it is nice. Taking care of myself is nice. And not only is it nice, it is important because if you do, I use the example in the image of a cup full of water. I live in Las Vegas today. It's 109, guys. If I fill
Mhm.
my cup full of water and someone bumps into me and a little splashes out, like, I'm not too mad about it because like it's a bummer, but like it's not a big deal. I got a cup full of water. But if my cup started half fill and someone pushed into me and some water fell out, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm gonna be short tempered. I'm gonna be frustrated. But when I have a full cup, I am like, oh, do you need some water here? You should have some water. Take some. We are more generous. We are the people that we want to be seen as loving, kind, thoughtful, smart, generous, right? But when we don't take care of ourselves first, we are short tempered. It takes more energy to pretend to be someone who is loving and kind and thoughtful and generous. And
Mhm.
so, what I hear people say, I have kids, it's chaos in the morning. You know what kids learn from their parents. So if your kid learns that in the morning, these are the routines that happen, this is what happens. We move in the morning. We sit down and take a moment and think about what we're doing. We like take a beat, or they see you, oh, this is mom's 15 minutes of time. They actually are still going to interrupt. They're still going to be kids, but they're going to, over their life, learn that as an adult, I get to say, this is my time. And then they have boundaries. and you're actually teaching them to have boundaries. And they're not going to remember like, oh, my mom was always working out when I was getting ready for school. They remember my mom had energy to chase after me. And I think too often so many people are not doing fun things with their kids because they don't have the energy. They don't have the stamina. They don't trust their bodies to keep up with those kids. And so I remember my parents when I was younger not having energy, time. They were short-tempered when I was younger. When they started to have their own wellness schedules, they're like, this is what I'm doing. You guys are on your own. What I saw was like two people like taking care of themselves, which made me want to take care of myself at that time. And I remember how much more energy and fun they were at that time. I didn't go, oh, they went to the gym without me for that, So it's just I understand that there's a lot of reasons, a lot of excuses why this couldn't work. And obviously, if you have an infant, it's a different story. But even if you have an infant, you have to take care of yourself. Otherwise, you cannot be there for them. Like this is just how it goes.
Yeah. And there's so many ways too to like fit in a workout as far as, when people are like, oh, it must be nice to, belong to that gym or go to that place. I mean, for 4 years, I lifted in my garage on some equipment that we bought for $500 off Craigslist. I promise
Yeah.
there's people quitting in your town. There's people quitting
Yes.
their exercises. Like, buy it from them. And yeah,
Oh,
you
I
can
sold
totally
a
get yourself
Peloton
set
to
up.
someone. So
Yeah.
I bought a new Peloton. They got it half off because I was like, I'm now going back into a gym. But like also on Facebook, you guys, if there are actual groups that are niche to your area that are all about like not throwing things away or not buying, don't buy. They're like, don't buy
Right.
groups. And literally it's people going, take my weights off of my porch. Just take them away. Just get rid of,
Yeah.
I don't want them anymore. So you're correct. There's someone quitting where you are. Also, it doesn't need to be an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also not an hour-long work. I don't know. I haven't done the research, but I'm convinced that it's the reason why people thinking hour-long workouts is because gym's classes were an hour, and that's because they had to pay the teacher for an hour. I'm convinced it's like
Right.
an hourly rate for the teacher's time. But there are so many studies that show that 20 minutes of cardio twice a week is great.
Plenty.
And
Yeah.
strength training, you don't need to do 2 hours or an hour to get what you need. And when I travel around the world, different countries actually have workout equipment in parks. And my neighborhood park has like some workout equipment.
Mhm.
There are free options. There are different options. A park bench can be a great thing to do dips off of or step ups. Like no matter what your economical level is, there is a way to get movement in, and it doesn't need to be an hour. And the reason I know this is for health and wellness and mindset and prioritizing yourself. First is that BJ Fogg is a behavioral scientist. He was a behavior scientist at Stanford. He wrote the book Tiny Habits. He is the person that the founders of Instagram study from. He's anybody who does habits study from this guy. And I love his work because it actually breaks down through scientific evidence how habits are truly created. And what it says is it has to be tiny, it has to be small. So if you are wanting to prioritize yourself first and you're inspired by this and you're like, yeah, I want my kids or my family to like see I'm being until I see them. I'm taking action, prioritizing myself today. If you try to do an hour-long workout, you may do it. But then probably if you don't do it haven't done a workout in a while, you're going to be sore, maybe too sore to do again the next day, or maybe the next day is too busy for an hour. So what BJ found is like actually making it super small. Super small. So it's easy to do is how habits are truly created. And it doesn't take 21 days or 60 days or 90 days. It actually can happen in 2 days. It can happen in
If it's
3 days.
small enough.
Yes, if it's small
Yeah.
enough. And also here's the other key for everyone listening. How you think about it afterwards and like in the moment afterwards. He has an example in his book that he does like 3 push-ups on the wall after he goes to the bathroom. So he flushes the toilet, turns the wall, did 3 wall push-ups. Okay. Easy. A wall push-up. It's the easiest
Yeah.
push-up there is, right?
Yeah.
And then he would give himself a little high five, like, whoop, did that. Like that smile, that upbeat thing, it creates dopamine in the brain. Habits are created from dopamine. The reason why everyone's addicted to their phones is because those red lights, those dings, that attention, it is actually creating dopamine hits in your brain. You can actually control that because you can create your own dopamine hits. So you have to celebrate what you did do.
Because most of us will be like, it's not enough. 3 wall push-ups isn't enough.
It's not
And
enough.
that's the thought you're having to combat there.
Well, and also that it's not enough, that's shame and judgment. And what the brain doesn't like is shame and judgment. So we'll actually avoid anything that brings judgment, shame on it. So you actually will not even think about doing the 3 push-ups because those have brought on a different feeling in the brain. The brain does not want to feel. Your brain is really great at making sure you do the things that make you feel good. That's why you have the urge to pick up your phone when you're like waiting in line, because your brain's like, oh,
Mhm.
that's going to make me feel good right now to scroll on that and like,
Yeah.
get distracted. So when you are creating something, if you are wanting to make a change in your life tomorrow, make it really small and then plan out how you're going to celebrate that. And let's just say you forget. Later that day, you remember, do not go, oh, I forgot to do that today. You actually go, oh, I'm so glad I remembered that. I'm so glad I thought about that. Celebrate that you thought about the thing because you want to create positivity around whatever you're trying to make a habit so that your brain seeks out opportunities. Have you ever noticed people who are movers and have like figured out their habits for like eating healthy and living well and all these things? You notice that like they are constantly aware of when those things are. It's because their brain is seeking out, how can I get another dopamine hit? And so they're looking for those times in the day when they can move. We think, oh, it must be nice, they have the time for that, but their brain sought out looking for the time for that. So we have to kind of hijack how we're thinking about the things we want to be doing and give ourselves space and grace. And that perfectionism stuff, it's keeping everybody from, all or nothing mindset, keeping everyone from the life they want to live.
Yeah. So when we're thinking about habits, a lot of times I feel like we want to incorporate more self-care habits. And in fact, I was at a therapy appointment. I do that to people. So she was like, "Oh, hey, so what are you doing for self-care?" Because we were talking about like family issues and stuff. And she's like, what do you do for self-care?" And I find that to be such a tricky question because I'm like, well, I do work out, like exercise is important to me. But beyond that, I'm like, I do my nails. Like I'm just kind of out of ideas. And so
Yeah. Oh, I love this.
obviously, yeah, I mean, I think moving our bodies is the greatest form of self-care, which is why I've like prioritized that. And I'm like, okay, I've got that down. But she's like, you need more. I'm like, I'm at a loss. I
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
everyone listening, I'm sure is, because we often think massages are self-care and facials are
Mhm.
self-care. And I consider my nails part of my routine. So, but they're self-care for sure. But like, not all self-care things have to be expensive, and not all of them have to need appointments. And for the busy people listening, I think we can actually start to identify different ways of self-care. So drinking
Yeah.
enough water in a day can be self-care.
Mm.
Sleeping, prioritizing your sleep can be self-care. Showering every day can be self-care. And I say that for the new mom listening who's like not had a shower in a couple of days. Shower every day, right? Like that's form of self-care. So self-care can be actually getting dressed each day. Self-care does not have to be these things that all cost money. It can actually be things that we put in our day. So I'll tell you my self-care routine. So in the morning, I wake up to a sunrise alarm clock. I highly recommend this because I don't have an affiliate link. I don't have any of this stuff. It's an alarm clock that instead of making a beeping noise, the light just it has a light that just goes from dark to like brighter and brighter as if the sun is waking me up. And so I wake up and I don't need to hit snooze because my brain has been seeing this light get brighter and brighter and going, oh, it's time to wake up now. And little birds chirp at the end. I dry brush. And that is something I never thought I would do, but it's actually like very stimulating for the skin and it kind of wakes my body up. This next thing did cost me investment, but I don't think you have to. You think you can do a cold shower. I do a cold plunge,
Mhm.
and it's like a few minutes in my cold plunge. And then I put on my sunscreen. I believe sunscreen is self care. These like things that make your longevity exist. So I live in Las Vegas. I walk the dog in the morning. You'd be surprised at how tan one can get at 6 a.m. You can get tan at 6 a.m. if you're
In
out there every
Vegas,
day.
yes.
Yes, yes. So I do put sunscreen on and I call that my self-care, and I grab a gallon jug of water and I walk my dog. And my hour-long walk is self-care. Look at the scenery. I get to watch the sunrise. That is time with me outside, getting that first light of day. Super great self-care. And then I do a movement practice of some kind. And I do a meditation or journaling. One of the two, whichever I'm like craving at the time. That is self-care. All of those things. My breakfast being heavily full of protein, self-care. We can actually change the way we think about our meals and we can consider them things that are going to be things we're carrying for our body. I'm sure you talk about food is fuel, right? Like, how are you fueling your body? That is self-care. So I bet you, Lisa, are doing a ton of things that are self-care in your day. It's just that you're thinking of more as like, oh, these are the things that are supposed to be good for my body, and not as we can reframe them and realize, wow, I am actually, look at all these things I'm doing for myself right now. At night, not last night, but most of the time, I try not to look at a screen for the hour before bed. And I do a sunset alarm for that. But there's some things I do at night. I could beef up my self-care routine at night for sure. But for the person listening, it is a lot that I do in the morning. Just know I started with just the walk in the morning.
Mm,
That's what I started with.
yeah.
So you start with something small and then you start to stack things on as your body needs them. What I need at 41 is much different than what I need at 30.
Yeah. I mean, I totally recognize how much more time I have now that I have teenagers. I don't know if you have children, but when they were young, like the morning, they would always wake up before me, and
Mhm.
managing littles in the morning is a whole other situation. So
Yeah.
you have to figure out self-care like throughout the day. But now that I have teenagers and they are, manage themselves, and quite frankly, they don't listen to this, so I can throw them under the bus. You know, I have to like wake them up at 10 or 11 on this
Yeah.
summer. I have one that works nights, so that or late evenings, so that's fair. But anyway, point being,
Yeah.
I totally recognize I have more time now. So thinking about fitting these things in, I mean, is it self-care if you have to bring the kids on their bikes for your walk? Still, yes,
Yeah.
it totally
Yeah.
is.
And also how cool they're riding their bikes while their mom or their dad is out on a walk with them. They're seen as they're spending time with you. You're seen as like, I'm getting my movement. My parents made us do family walks. And now I realize they were doing walks to lose weight. But like that was like, but they made it fun and they made it part of our thing. I think it's so much harder for parents these days. There's a lot of pressure and expectations on them to like
Mm,
helicopter around their kiddos more and more and more. But I also think that like you get to decide how it works, and or maybe, my goodness, it used to be that you could ask help from the neighbors. Like I remember there was a couple days a week we went to the neighbor's house for an hour while things were my mom had this one job that she would do. And so then we go back and like then 2 days a week their kids were over. So,
yeah, swapping.
I
We did
I
that a lot.
I think that there's always a way.
Yeah.
There's always a way, but you will have to start small and then start to just think about what if I knew how to solve this problem of time? Or what if I like I could work out I could move, I could go to the library, I could go to a park for an hour. Like I know one of my clients had like 3 kids drop offs in the morning, 3 different places. And she's like, I just don't have the time. And I said, okay, well, tell me about the drop offs. Tell me when pickups start. Well, I'm on your way after kid number 3. So like, just drive straight here. This is where you're going to drive and we're going to do this thing. And like, I think we get so consumed by all the things we have to do. We forget that there are things we can do. And there's also some things you don't need to do right now. Like there just is. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to like, I have to do all the things all the time. Taking care of your body and brain so that they can be there tomorrow is the most important thing. And so if that means for a while that the backyard does not get mowed, then it doesn't get mowed. Like unless you have an HOA that's flying a drone over your backyard, like let it go. Let it go. Like we don't like it's okay, like we have people over our house and I'm like, my patio needs to be repaired. It's not priority right now. So come on over.
Yeah.
So there's just I think it's just a matter of like being kind to ourselves and truly noticing what is possible in the life stage that you're at. And it will change not only as your kids get older, but for those of you, but even for women, like as we get older at 40, what kind of workout do I need is different than at 30. What I need at 50 is going to be different at 40. And so know that you're always going to be changing it. And that is based on what you need.
Yeah. I notice I'm also interested in different things. Like I'm interested in different workouts, but I do have, this is like going back a little bit, but I have to say, like, shout out to this stranger that I walked past. She was in the park that I was walking past during my walk a couple days ago, and she had a dog that was on a leash, but just kind of roaming around. And then she had a stroller, but her little girl was out just toddling around on the grass, and she had a blanket there. And then she had some weights, and she clearly had put those weights in the base of the stroller, and she was doing squats. And I was like, I love what is happening right here, because even if she got 20 squats in and her baby's like, I'm done, it's great. It's
Yeah, she was
great.
prepared for it. Yeah, I love
Yeah, like
that.
just little exercise snacks whenever you can get them in are great.
Oh, my husband will be when he's waiting for like his ramen, he'll do push-ups on the counter. I'll catch him doing some lunges. Our project manager was here for a week and she was on hold and I watched her doing a self-care workout. Like there are different things. If you are working at a desk and you have to be on these calls, there are things. Oh, this is really fun. I interviewed this one woman. She became a mountaineer. Like she started climbing the K2s during the pandemic. Okay, she never did it before, did it. And I asked, she's 7 children. So for those of you who are like, these, they don't have, this one has 7 children. Okay. So the ages are at least 1 to 7, but they could be 7 to 4. Like they're 7 kids. Okay. And I said, how did you train? Cause like, obviously it's endurance. Like, how did you do that? Cause you need time. And she said, oh, my kid's in soccer. Soccer games are long. I took a 12-inch step, put it on the sidelines. I never missed a soccer game. And I stepped on that step up, down for 90 minutes. She's like, I had calls. I took them on a treadmill. Like, she's like, there are always ways. We have to start looking for them. She's like, I didn't have to be, when I didn't have to be on camera, I was on the treadmill. I had a note taker taking notes. Like, especially nowadays, there's so much technology that can help us give ourselves time. And we've been talking about movement because I'm a movement practitioner. So like, that's how I see my like self-care,
Yeah.
but also our bodies are meant to move. And it's not about punishment. It's not about shame for what you ate. It's because it is truly like turning on a car and keeping the engine running. You can't let a car sit for 2 weeks and expect it to run. The battery's going to be dead. Things are going to break down. Like you've got to move your body. And so finding those little exercise snacks or movement snacks that you can do, the more you do it, the more you realize how much you're taking care of yourself. And so you can be it till you see it as someone who like prioritizes themselves first every day. And it's going to be little by little, not a lot at a time.
I think it's so important to be thinking like, this is what my body was built to do. It's not really optional. I had a guest say, like, you cannot be a healthy person and not exercise. Like, it's not possible. You cannot, I mean, I think that's probably extreme. But what I mean is, this is the way our bodies were designed to function. They were not designed to sit all day.
Your spine was not designed to sit on it.
No.
As much as we do.
So, like, we are meant to move. And I just love thinking about my body as like the vessel for my soul. And my soul wants that space to be a healthy, lovely place to live. And just to be able to take care and to move as long as you possibly can. I mean, obviously, there's always going to be exceptions, injuries, people that get put on bed rest and all of that. But those are the exceptions to the times when we want to be moving as best we can. And I used to kind of shy away with my clients from like recommending exercises because I'm not a personal trainer. That's not where my expertise is. So I'm like, well, do what you want. But now I'm just like, it's not optional. Like, what are you doing for movement? Yeah. If you're walking, great. If you're lifting weights, great. If you're doing Pilates, great. But start with something you like to do and then try new things on top of that.
Yeah. I think walking is highly underrated. It is a really amazing thing. There's, especially for those of us over 40, what is it like? Zone 2 is what the range is about. Like, so, it doesn't have to be something you have to go to a gym for, have a membership for. You can do it at different parts of your day. You can park at the back of the parking lot and walk to the front of the store. Like, you don't have to actually set like massive time aside. If you're just like wanting to start walking more, you could just do that. Like, my husband was like circling the parking lot. I'm like, I can walk. There was 17 parking spots. I could just park the car. Like, I'll walk, So I think that that's really cool. And I do think that people just have to find the movement practice that they like, because that means you're going to want to go do it. And then if the more you do it, the more you're going to want to explore others. So I really love that. And I do think the person's it's a bit extreme, because there's many times when movement isn't possible. Like, you're not healthy if you don't exercise. I do think that for the person who like exercise is a strong word for them, then replace it with movement. Because I did grow up in a family where like They were always told to diet and exercise. And I was like, what if we just go for a walk? And like, it doesn't have to be these like things that are, you have to be an hour, have to be 45 minutes, have to like, no pain, no gain. It can actually just be something you enjoy doing that has any movement. Maybe that's a trampoline, maybe that's going to the dog park and like chasing, throwing a ball and then going a little further. So the more we can find different ways of moving it, the better it is. And I think the more people who will move. But yeah, we're meant to move. We're meant to not sit on our butts. My yoga teacher says that the worst inventions were shoes and chairs, because shoes make your feet form to whatever the shoe wants to do, and chairs because people just sit in them badly all day.
Badly. Yeah. As I'm like fixing my posture, slumping here, I tend to kind of like slump over my microphone when I'm recording. So yeah.
Doesn't that? I know these are the things that happen to us. And that's okay. Like, I think it's also like, it's okay if you do sit at, the couch and watch a cartoon with your kids like that. And these are all fine things. It doesn't have to be everything all of the time. But what's also cool about posture, and the reason why, like, for me, my Pilates practice is my movement practice, is because I don't have to think about my posture. So that is for me, like, my win. But because who wants to? No one has the time for that. But it doesn't have to be Pilates for you. Anytime you move your muscles and you strengthen your muscles, your body benefits from that. And then it holds its own self up. So you don't have to do it. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Strengthening the posture muscles. So then they just do that on their own. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been so fun, Lesley. Why don't you tell people where they can find you online and hear more?
Yeah, Lisa, this is so fun. Thanks so much for letting me like nerd out about prioritization of self. And I really hope we've inspired someone to do something for themselves tomorrow. If we did, you can let me know. I'm on the Be It Till You See It podcast. Wherever you listen to this one, you can listen to mine. On Instagram as a Be It Pod or as Lesley.Logan. If you're wanting some free Pilates tips and things like that in your life, we can absolutely help you there.
Great. We'll put all those links in the show notes as well. Thanks again. If this episode has helped you in any way, could you do me a favor and just share it with someone? Take a screenshot of this episode and post it to your stories, and for sure tag me and Lesley. You can also just send it to a friend. If you're looking for that extra bit of personalized help with your weight loss, be sure to schedule your free coaching call with me and see how much you can benefit. Link for that is in the show notes. Have a great week, and as always, thanks for listening to the Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well podcast.